setting the timer now. And don't worry about rhyming. Don't worry about sorting any of these ideas out, putting it into any kind of form. Just flow of consciousness, see where it gets you, and remembering to invoke the senses and draw those in as much as you can. Feel free to make up words. just under 5 minutes left. If in doubt, what does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? What noises are there? Just under 2 minutes left. Oh wow, that was 10 minutes. 10 minutes always goes really quickly when I do these kind of exercises. Okay, plant. This is really interesting for me, and I don't know how you found it, but more often than not, I'll find myself being drawn down some sort of memory lane avenue. So even though plant on the outside might seem like, okay, I can talk about the plants on the piano, or the plants in the corner, it might take me on a journey to, say, my grandfather's greenhouse. However, on this occasion, as soon as I started writing, I just wrote whatever came into mind and I let that kind of guide me. So here we go. Plant, 10 minutes. The thick foliage that covers the front door, tendrils of ivy hanging partly obscuring the frosted window, permitting only partial light to come through the threshold. The paint was peeling and cracks beneath of the wood itself betrayed a lack of care, or maybe just not even noticing, an obliviousness to how things seemed, how they looked. And the spell of this front door, its framing, the cacophony I put, the cacophony of green, heavy, the spell is broken as the front gate squeezes, shrieks, calling out for oil. The air is damp, it's almost spitting, as the grey sun, leaden, sinking balloon, hangs low in the sky, an orange bloom through layers of fog, pollution and atmosphere. And the man, a faded jacket, has 2 shopping bags in hand, cutting into skin, pulling down plastic into palm, the weight of tin cans, the other non-perishables, hunching his back as if protecting himself from some invisible threat overhead. Behind wet eyes, there's an empty stare, helpless. The bags are put down before the front door steps, cans sinking to the tile, a soft clank and a jangle of keys pressing into a well-worn lock, opening out into a dingy, partially lit hallway. The gentle hum of traffic recedes as the shunt and loud click of the door jolts us back to the man, picking up the bags again and making his way to a fluorescent lit room at the far end of this corridor, the kitchen. This taste of damp, even inside, the clatter of water into kettle, click and glow of hob, rough fingers on a matchstick, kitchen tap, now taking out a tin of beans, decanting into a saucepan, scuffed and black with fire, but still usable. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to set the timer this time for 7 minutes. And what we're going to do is reread through, underline any lines that you like the sound of. Just follow your instinct here. So if you like the look of them, maybe they're going to feel good on the tongue, maybe they'll feel good to speak. And if they feel good to speak, they're going to feel good to sing. So read through, underline the lines you like, write them out again on another side of paper. So you can see I've written 2 pages here. And then I'm going to see what I can add. Now, a narrative is certainly starting to emerge. At the beginning, it was about a plant, and now it's about this man who lives in a house. I have no idea who this man is. The point is, with these exercises, that object, the plant, for example, the plant, it's just a starting point. It's just a way of you generating something from nothing. So it really doesn't matter if you deviate in terms of what you write about. It's simply the practice of conjuring up something from nothing. So I'm going to set the timer, 7 minutes this time, and see what comes of it. You might find that you like basically nothing, but you have this starting point now because you've done this initial bit of writing, and that's absolutely fine. 7 minutes though. And if you want, you can also, what I'm doing as I'm reading through is I'm just taking things that jump out at me and I'm just taking those as new lines. So it might be that the order gets a little bit mixed up. You can apply a certain amount of Williams-Burroughs mixing up technique with this if you want. Just taking out stuff that you like the look of, you can rearrange them and see what we're left with. It's funny, the more the writing, the more the writing relies on the sensoriness. It's almost like the less kind of coherent sense you need to make, because you're just painting this picture, which could be quite impressionistic. It's just occurring to me that everything I'm writing down is basically sensory. Okay, we're about halfway through. What I'm finding really tricky is well, it's definitely it's definitely a vignette of sorts. It's an image. If you've already done this and you have a little bit of time left, we've got 1 minute. You might want to choose lines again. I think I'm going to do that. Or I'm going to cross out the things I don't like. Okay, so I love these second round of timed writing with these kind of exercises, because you're really starting to zoom in on this thing. And I don't even know where this image is coming from, but we find ourselves writing about this. So what I've done is I wrote down the lines, and I'm actually going to read, I've started editing this, but I'm going to read you. When you're reading it through, the initial bit of writing through, and you're underlining the things you like, or you're taking the lines you like, you can kind of move these around. Like I said, the more sensory it is, you're painting this kind of impressionistic, Monet-esque image. It's just a snapshot in time rather than like a narrative of a situation. Open and broken is the gate, damp squeeze and shriek, the man is faded, plastic into palm, low glowing sun leaves the horizon, So I like that. Sun leaves the horizon. Protection from invisible-eyed. Ooh, protection from the invisible threat. Empty behind the eyes, betraying an ambivalence. Soft clink, jangle of keys, press, gentle hum, taste of damp, clattering water, click and glow of hob, tap, pan and loneliness, pervading. So this is where I kind of started writing more. The silence of unanswered letters, calls, reaching out, messages, his view from a window framed in condensation, signs of mould, an overgrown garden, brambles and tomato plants, long gone, cabbage gone to seed. Tomato plants long gone, cabbage gone to seed. Stacked pots, blackbird box, and a pattering along the fence, wet earth mixing with the beans on the hob. So then I just went through and I started taking things out. Open and broken, squeeze and shriek, faded man, plastic into palm, leaves the horizon, protection from invisible or maybe just invisible threat. Empty-eyed, betraying an ambivalence of soft clink, jangle of keys, gentle hum, taste of damp, clattering water. So as I'm reading this through, I'm thinking, is there any semblance of meter? Because that's going to help me. And so the last bit we're doing in this little initial writing exercise is to see if we can find or glean some sort of meter. So that means the amount of stresses per line. Da-ga, ga-da, ga-da. See if you can find anything. So if I read this out, open and broken, squeeze and shriek, faded man, plastic to palm, leaves the horizon. So it's very much but I might decide when developing this into a lyric or a poem, I might decide to make that tetrameter. So rather than duple, is it duple? two stress syllables, or 2 feet as you'd call it, might make it tetra, so 4. Open and broken, squeeze and shriek. Faded man, plastic to palm. A glowing sun leaves the horizon. Protection from invisible eyes. I actually like that. So what I love when you go through these kind of things, you end up with these unexpected collisions between words. Protection from an invisible threat is what it was, because it was his back being hunched because he was carrying these bags that were too heavy. And then I wrote, and underneath, empty-eyed. So I've got protection from invisible-eyed. So at this point I've got a load of words. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to edit it even further, and I'm going to put it down into, I'm going to write it out, and I think I will choose maybe 6 or 8 line stanzas, but I might just arbitrarily choose that number, like 6 or 8 lines, to help me whittle down what I have. If I was practicing my songwriting in terms of how can I turn this into a lyric, what I might do is think, then that's an A, what's in here is an A, I can add some stuff. But my B, maybe that's a refrain, could just be 1 line. And it could be, because it's very impressionistic in this A section, I might choose to say something more direct in the B. So I wrote something later on. The silence of unanswered letters, the silence of loneliness, tip tap pan and the silence, click and glow, the silence of loneliness, or the silence of unanswered letters. I quite like that as well. We're not going to musicalise now, but I obviously want to sing this. The silence of unanswered letters, calls reaching out of the window, calls reaching out of a window. The silence of unanswered letters, and calls reaching out, and calls reaching in through the window. And calls reaching in through the window. Okay, so what I have here is actually, I can actually turn this into something. And it's absolutely, this is the wonderful thing about object writing, right? It's absolutely not something that I thought I'd write about. But in doing this writing, invoking the senses, really getting into feeling, smelling, breathing, hearing this scenario, this picture that's come out of just this first word, plant, there's something to talk about there. And maybe it's like, you know, the loneliness of an old person living alone in a house, and their partner's gone and their friends are gone, and so maybe what we'll try to do is we'll try to meet again, and we'll develop the text into music and see where it takes us.